It's a tremendous pleasure to welcome you today. Today, we celebrate the convergence of real estate, technology, and innovation with the promise to reshape the urban landscape and redefine the way we work, live, and play, with a transformative impact in communities worldwide. I am thrilled to see an incredible enthusiasm and talent gathered around the PropTech Innovation Challenge. Most of you know what the PropTech Innovation Challenge is, also known as ULI PIC, though I'd like to say a few words for those of you who might not be familiar with it. When Simon Aboud and I decided to spearhead this initiative with the ULI about a year ago, our observation was quite simple. We need to bridge the gap between innovation and the real estate industry. There's just not enough communication between these groups. On one hand, you have real estate players who don't know the ideas and solutions that exist out there, or at least not enough. And on the other hand, you have ambitious entrepreneurs who have limited knowledge in how to interact with real estate industry stakeholders and how to engage with them. And in a world that is rapidly evolving, innovation is not just a buzzword, it's a necessity. So we thought, what better than a competition to expose the forward thinkers, the creatives, the disruptors of the real estate industry to their stakeholders. And what's best as an organization than the ULI to do it? So we received the support, we received the support of our ULI Europe leadership, who also believes that technology and innovations are key to address some of our industry's most pressing challenges. And ULI PIC, the PropTech Innovation Challenge, was born. I'm pleased to say that we are on our second edition now. First edition was last year in 2023. And I'd like to thank all our contributors to date. That's the ULI team, our sponsors that you can see on this slide, LaSalle and PIMCO for the ULI Europe Young Leaders Program, our PIC champions all across Europe, our jury members all over the continent, and of course, all participants and the supporters behind PIC. If we can move to the next slide, I'd like to introduce the group of speakers for today. It's a true honor to have such an amazing group of leaders on this call. Top left, Simon Aboud, Program Director for Hines, member of the ULI Europe Young Leader Executive Committee, and co-founder of the ULI PropTech Innovation Challenge, and co-manages it for this year's edition. Susa Schaumann, top right, Investment Analyst at NREP, member of the ULI Europe Young Leader Executive Committee, and Suso is the other co-manager of this PIC edition 2024. Idris Gusans, bottom left here, CEO of PropTech Lab and co-founder of RECAP, Resilient Cities Accelerator Program, who is pioneering with the ULI the Innovation Village at the ULI Europe annual conference this year. Our two winners from the ULI PropTech Innovation Challenge 2023, Pranit Talukdar, bottom right here, Head of Business Development at EFIC, winner of the European PropTech Innovation Challenge 2023. And last but not least, Ethan Levy at bottom center here, co-founder at Roofscapes, who received a special mention of ULI PIC 2023, and we'll talk more about later on. And myself, so Thibaut Weston-Smith, co-founder of Crayon Partners, chair of ULI Europe Young Leaders. Talking about today's agenda. Today's program will be split in 4 sections. First, we'll talk about the ULI and the PropTech Innovation Challenge. Second, we'll talk about the ULI Europe annual conference, including the Innovation Village. Third, we'll hear what it gets and what it is to be a winner of the 2023 session, and maybe some tips for this year's session, for this year's edition, sorry. And we'll finish with a Q&A session so you can ask any questions you want about this year's challenge, about the ULI PropTech Innovation Challenge. With that in mind, this session is meant to be as interactive as possible. So we have a presentation, but don't hesitate to use the chat again and the Zoom Q&A tab to ask any questions. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Susa to talk about the rest of today's session. Over to you, Susa.
Thank you, Thibaut. Thank you. And Hi, everyone. My name is Susa, as Thibaut just kindly introduced me, and I'll just first here give you a brief introduction to the ULI as a whole. So the ULI is a quite impressive organization. It was founded in 1936 in the States, but has been active in Europe since the 1990s. So it is one of the oldest network of cross-disciplinary real estate professionals in the world. And if we move to the next slide, the ULI has a sole mission of shaping the future of the built environment for transformative impact in communities worldwide, which is quite a mission. But underlying that is three mission commitments. One being to connect this active and passionate, diverse membership group, which I think they're doing quite well. It is across different sectors, it is across different geographies, and alongside that comes inspiring the members between each other, but also inspire them to share best practices across different parts of our industry. And then finally, they're leading the way in solving some of the challenges that the built environment are facing as a whole. So quite impressive. And if we go to the next slide, you can see here a little bit of highlights of the reach and the impact the ULI organization have had up to date. So they have more than 46,000 members across 80 different countries. And they have a vast majority of programs and events, including webinars, virtual. They also have a lot of in-person events and are really trying to connect with the whole industry on all different kinds of levels. They're also trying to engage with members on different levels of their careers, being also students, try and capture the bright minds we have amongst us and get them into the industry and inspired into the industry early on. ULI is driven a lot by volunteer workers, so people that are putting in their spare time to try and drive the changes that we need to see in our industry. And if we go to the next slide, the ULI has these three mission priorities, one being decarbonization and net zero. So what the ULI is trying to do here is trying to connect and inspire people to reach a level where we can decarbonize and reach a net zero level across the environment. They want to increase housing attainability and affordability. And then finally, they want to be a part of educating the next generation of diverse leaders. And next slide. One of the ways they're also doing this is through the ULI Young Leaders. So this is actually a part of the membership group where it asks you if you are under the age of 35, you become a part of the ULI Young Leaders. And it is a way of, and quite uniquely, inspiring the leaders of tomorrow to engage with each other, but also to engage with the leaders of today, so that we enable knowledge sharing across these different generations and also ensure that we capture knowledge across all of these different generations. And I think I am passing it back to Thibaut with this, or Simon.
Yes, thank you very much, Lisa. Well, and good afternoon, good morning for the folks who will see this recording and for the folks who are on the call today. So now we're actually going to dive into quickly the PropTech Innovation Challenge. So 2023, as Thibaut mentioned, is the second year. And the whole goal behind this is, as you mentioned, as Susa mentioned, almost 50K members across the world. Most of them are not startups. Most of them are not venture capital. Most of them are not heads of corporate innovation. Most of them are actually the people on the ground making things happening. So ultimately, your users. I think that's the big difference between an existing conference where I'm sure a lot of you are engaging with a lot of PropTech initiatives where basically your audience are the heads of innovation from the corporations, are the VCs, etc. Here it's really how basically the context behind, as Thibaut mentioned, connecting those 50,000 members, or in Europe around 10,000, with the brightest minds out there. So 2023, if we move to the next slide, was a pilot. And so we'll actually go to the next one as well, as we just went through those. 2023 was a pilot. We didn't really know how the industry would receive this initiative. Ultimately, it was very well received with more than 100 applicants. We engaged in more than 8 countries or regions within Europe. Those are the flags. And ultimately, this is also a ULI initiative led by the young leaders. As mentioned by Susse, those people that are under 35. And so, this is actually where we're engaging with 13 points of contacts across Europe, young leaders that are doing this on the side to make sure that this actually happens. So long story short, 100 application. You'll see later in the presentation that we're engaging with national industry subject matter experts. So we engaged last year with 60 of them across Europe. We had obviously a final where usually we try to connect the dots between you guys and the ULI communities in the different chapters. And then we end with a public vote, which also help with the reach and making sure that on the one hand, we get the ULI community's point of view, but also the industry broader point of view. So if we move to the next slide, and again with EFIC and obviously Ethan and Roofscape as the finalist winner, and then special mention. This is a quick flavor of how our final jury. So every country will have their national competition. Every winner of that national competition will move to a European final. This is a sneak peek of how our European jury of last year looked like. So if you see here, we've got the crème of la crème, la crème de la crème in French, which is basically, heads of big companies like Heinz with Lars Huber. We've got, obviously our sponsors, the heads of innovation of PGIM. Obviously, Idris, as part of the PropTech, the broader PropTech, European PropTech community, joining us. Some subject matter experts from elsewhere, such as Margarita and Carmen, and finally, Frank Mauen, who's representing the European Commission and the European Innovation Council. So here, really try to connect the dots between the private and the public sector. This year, it's going to be even more exciting, more to come. So if we move to the next slide. So that's a quick shout out to all the European winners, so the country winners. So last year we had 6 country winners, very different from each other. And ultimately, this is where the European jury comes in to actually choose their 2 favorites. And obviously, again, EFIC and Roofscape making all the way to the European winner stage. So if you move to the next slide, maybe just to close. So why would you actually do this? Just to make clear, there is no money at the end of this initiative. There is no potential partnership initiative at the end of this PropTech Innovation Challenge, but it's really for you to build the relationship with the industry. And as you can see here, it's a heavily human experience. And especially we're looking at, so this is something to keep in mind. This is really the value add, how we can connect you with the broader ULI community. So if we move to the next slide, we'll dive into the 2024 numbers. And Susse, I don't know if you like to start, or I'm happy to kick off. And feel free to add anything I might be missing.
Yeah, you can kick off, Simon. It's fine.
Super. Great. So if we move to the next slide for everyone's awareness, this is basically the 2024 champions in every country. Last year, we had 13 of them, so young leaders that are leading across Europe this initiative locally. This is the latest list. So in this year, we're actually going to engage again with the Nordics, with Iberia, connecting with Spain and Portugal, the UK and Ireland on a special UKI partnership, Germany, Switzerland, and of course, France. And finally, a new region within, which is the Central Eastern European chapters with Poland and Czech Republic. With, again, as Thibaut mentioned earlier, myself, Susse, and Thibaut co-leading this at the European level. If we go to the next slide, This is basically the roadmap for this year. As mentioned earlier, this is going to be divided into two different phases, the in-country phase and then the European phase. And this is ultimately the reason why we just decided not to just have a European phase, is that you can really build a relationship with the local community in the different national council. So basically, in our case, the application has been out so far and will be closing mid-May. So, for whoever is actually seeing this video and you're not yet closing your application, feel free to make it happen. This whole thing will start with internal voting. So as you finish your application, very straightforward, easy to apply competition. See here, the idea is not to learn all to make it complicated. The idea is really to connect. And us being the facilitators there. So by applying it, your application will be reviewed by a special group of around 10 jury that have been picked in every single country. So let's say I'm applying to France. I will be my application will be going through a jury of around 9 to 10 jury members, subject matter experts nationally or even European. Which is really, we're trying to connect it at a different level. Obviously, there is some high-profile ULI folks that will be engaged, but we'll also engage with academia, so, with the private sector, trying to connecting the architects, the investor, the landlords, really to get a very good understand, like a 360 panel representing the industry. Once this goes through and you're shortlisted as one of the top initiatives, we actually dive into the event level. And every level, every country will be having ideally in-person events, or sometimes when it's too difficult, a virtual event, but with the same aim, to connect you with the ULI community locally and to be able to pitch your solution and engage into a Q&A with those subject matter experts. Now, once this is done, and hopefully you're able to move through as the national winner for PIC in 2024, you move into the European phase. And the European phase, similar to last year, will be starting with a public voting. So for 2 or 3 weeks, we'll make sure to share the 7 or 9 winners in every country with the industry. And here, basically, it's an opportunity for us to engage with the broader industry and having them give a say. Now, obviously, this is not a silver bullet, but the idea here is simply to provide an opportunity for people outside the ULI or to simply pitch in. This obviously has a low impact in terms of points when comparing to the regional final, where basically you also have to pitch in front of our European jury. All of this together, we're putting the points of the European jury and then the public voting, obviously with a very different weighting, and the winners will be announced. So hopefully this is straightforward, and by then, and the announcement, of this final of the winners will be done at Sea Change. For the ones who are not acquainted yet with the ULI Sea Change Summit here in ULI Europe, is the flagship events and gathering, bringing more together than I think 300 subject matter experts around the ESG piece of our industry. And long story short, the winners are being announced during this conference, and this is a golden opportunity to engage with those 200 subject matter experts. Moving now to the next slide. That's a quick one. What is it in for me? I won't go into the details of it, but already hinted to it. We're not offering money. We're not offering structured pilot yet. But the idea is really to connecting the dots between you and ultimately your audience and your future users. So really, connecting the dots between the big name of ULI and then and then your initiatives. And maybe just to make sure, obviously, we're looking for a lot of different stakeholders to apply. Startups. You might be a team in an academic lab working on a new material and then a few other things. So that's very important. And also, we're not looking for startups that are extremely matured or companies that are extremely matured that are basically winning every single PropTech conference across Europe. We're looking for new type of companies. And I think that's quite important. And this year, we're really focusing around the environmental aspects, the scope 3 approach, and really, the whole life cycle. So how are those coming in? And obviously more information on that on the website. And do not hesitate to reach out to us. If, for example, your company is you're not sure if this actually applies to your company, drop us a message. You'll have our coordinate or information just to confirm to move forward. So I think with that, that's a lot of me talking. I'm expecting that the next slide, I think, is going to be around our next big conference here in Europe, and I'll leave it to Thibaut to kick it off, and then Idriss.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, we wanted to give you a brief update about this year's ULI Europe annual conference that is being held in Milan from June 11th to June 13th. If we can move to the next slide. The ULI Europe annual conference, what is it? 3 days of thought leadership, unparalleled networking, inspirational activities and experiences. With this conference, you gain access to a European and global network of senior professionals in the real estate industry from all corners of the industry. It's 800 plus land use professionals. People are joining our investors, developers, architects, urban planners, engineers, venture capitalists, financial leaders, public, private sector, nonprofit, academic. You have here on this slide a few of our speakers, including as keynote speaker, Jose Barroso, who was the Prime Minister for Portugal and former President of the European Commission. Also Janet Henry, HSBC Global Chief Economist, and of course the Mayor of Milan, the host city, Giuseppe Sala. With this conference, you forge valuable connections, explore potential partnerships, and gain a good understanding of the evolving landscape of real estate in Milan and beyond. Before I turn it over to Idriss to talk about the Innovation Village, just wanted to give a shout out on the next slide about the Young Leader Forum, which is an exclusive forum for the ULI members under the age of 35, also known per ULI terminology as Young Leaders. This is on the last day of the conference on Thursday, June 13th. The program will be a dedicated program with thought leadership, discussions around the microenvironment, local deep down on Milan and the evolving landscapes, soft skills around how to become a better leader in your line of work, and of course a lot of similar to the main conference, networking opportunities to connect with peers and more senior leaders. With that in mind, I'd like to turn it over, and you have a good sense. I'm seeing some comments in the chat. This is the sample of speakers we had on this slide. The program, you can go on the ULI website if you want to have more information. If you haven't signed up yet, I encourage you to do so. And most of the people who are on this call will be there as well. So don't hesitate if you have any questions, of course. Idriss, I'd like to turn it over to you to talk about the Innovation Village at the ULI conference in Milan.
Absolutely. I hope the connection is good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you though.
Yeah, I'm dialing from the car, so I would protect my bandwidth and just maybe it's better that I just don't turn the camera on. You know, the first time I heard about ULI was probably 8 years ago when I first created PropTech Lab, and so it was a dream to join the ULI event, etc. I could never have imagined this potential partnership with ULI Europe, but I think this is not a big achievement for me personally. We don't care about me. I think it's a great achievement for the complete PropTech ecosystem in Europe and maybe globally as well. That the ULI Europe really wants to offer the opportunity for startups to exhibit for the first time at their flagship annual events, right? So we discussed already what is this event about. So I think if we go to the next slide, you can basically understand what the opportunities are. So I will maybe not speak about recap itself now. I don't think it's the most relevant. We're an ESG accelerator, accelerating the sales for ESG related PropTech solutions with a good track record already. 30 companies accelerated. We have raised more than 1 million for some of our startups, closed multiple times, more than 1 million euro deal sizes, etc. So it really works. But on the next slide, I think we can basically see the opportunity of this event. So the ULI Europe conference in Milano will be hosted in MICO, which is the largest congress center place in the world. It's 50,000 square meters. Was designed by Bjerk Ingels. So it's really an amazing location. We've been there to check it out before organizing this. And so there will be 2 floors where the conference will take place. The first floor, which is here in the floor plan, is the networking area. And so we basically took under management all of this in order to create an innovation village where 20 startups will be able to exhibit. And then you have the second floor above, which we don't see here in the slides, where you will have the conference. And so the idea was really to be at the center of the networking area to maximize the chance that all of the corporates, so the between 700 and 1,000 C-levels from the largest corporations coming from 30 countries, will really be forced in one way to engage with all of the startups there. So going to the next slide, our intention was never to have like a big like booth like in the massive expo like Expo Real, MIPIM or Provada or whatever. The intention was always to provide to the startups a place where they can have back-to-back meetings. So here the intention is really to facilitate the sales meeting. So you have the first booth, which looks like this, where you have a table, you have a totem, allowing you to really have back-to-back meetings. So maybe 20 meetings during the day, you know. It's really a transactional event. You're there to do sales, not so much to listen to content or to do brand recognition, really sales. This is what you want to do. The next booth on the next slide gives a little bit more visibility. So you see you have a screen, LCD display. Also, you have a bigger totem, and then the last one is the most furnished one, the most sort of equipped one, with a bigger totem with the screen incorporated, etc. But so again, the intention was not to build a like amazing booth that impress people, but more to have a place where you can really do business meeting. And I'm very excited about this because on the next slide we could really partner up with ULI to make sure that we guarantee the ROI for the startups. So you see the cost varies between, the investment cost varies between 2.5K and 4K for the largest package. And so, of course, if you sign one customer there, the ROI is super easy to calculate, right? But if you have 0 sales qualified lead and then 0 transaction, at the end, it's a lot of money that you throw out of the window. So we wanted to guarantee as much as we can the ROI of this. So this is why we could negotiate with ULI Europe that not only the startups get visibility during the event, you know, with the booth, the totem, the screen, etc., but they're also invited in the dinner the day before the event, which is a very exclusive event. And also they will get the ice-breaking email, which is something that has a lot of value, I think. So the ULI organization will send to all of the attendees, so 800 up to 1,000 CEOs that will come to the event, a week before the event, an email saying, hey, are you interested about low carbon materials? Then you have to meet this startup with a call to action, book a meeting with them here. You're interested about parking mutualization, air quality monitoring, energy efficiency, low carbon or offsite construction, whatever. So basically the 20 startups will have a short description, the logo and a call to action in order to sort of excite the audience, you know, about the event. So I think this could generate already a lot of meetings. Of course, you get access to the complete database through the matchmaking platform. So the way I would use this as a founder is I make sure I have 20 meetings back to back during the day, and then I will basically fill out my pipeline for the next 6 months to make sure that I really benefit from this. So I think it's a no-brainer, the investment cost. I would definitely do this. And then you see you have a bit of other information. And the last relevant thing I wanted to touch upon is the kiosk. So we will have a desk branded recap where it's written, book your innovation tour here. And then corporates will come and we will ask them key questions to qualify them, and then we will organize on site in real time a personalized innovation tour for them, introducing them physically to the most relevant startups. So we will take their hand and we will say, hey, you have to meet these 3 founders that are really top-notch solutions for you. So that way we can take away the sort of pain that corporates sometimes have to start conversation with startups. First ask, what is it that you do, etc., etc. No. We take away this pain and we do ourselves the introduction. So I'm very excited, as you can tell. I think it's really a good opportunity. So, but we have only 11 booths left now. And if you confirm before the 15th of May, you can have your company featured into one of the most prestigious Italian journal, which is Il Sole 24. So you can get your company description in this journal that will be printed and sent to a lot of people. So it's an amazing opportunity of visibility. So that's a bit of a sense of urgency. It's for you. It's all I had for you today. I need to run. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Idris. Thank you for your time, and exciting to have you on board and to have Recap on board, and glad actually ULI is taking innovation even more seriously with this new partnership. So now we'll dive into the last part of today's session, which if anything, the most interesting part, which is where I'll be inviting to the cam Pranit and Ethan to actually have a quick conversation. I know a lot of you are currently in the stage of what is actually PIC about? Never heard of it. I might maybe know ULI, I might not know ULI. And today we decided to actually reach out to our our winner, Pranit and Enefik from last year, and then Ethan, who was with Roofscape, the special mention, to actually get a conversation with you guys, understanding a few things in the hope that it provides some clarity for those applicants that are currently thinking about it. Maybe before we go into the conversation, I'd love to maybe hand over to maybe Pranit first, then Ethan. Quick intro about what you guys are up to, and then from there we'll go into a quick conversation, if that's all right with you.
And I think what we're currently doing is we're continuing our mission, which is assisting with rehabilitation, increasing the energy efficiency and rehabilitation of homes across Spain. We've been pivoting the idea and looking at different solutions across the board and continuing to work on that. That's what we've been doing. No changes. Continue with the business plan. Thank you,
Pranit. Ethan, a few words from you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, and great to see everyone today. At Roofscape, just to contextualize what we're working on, we actually work on the adaptation of roofs, and particularly pitch roofs, to climate change and evolving uses in existing buildings. And right now we're just in the middle of the construction of a pilot project here in Paris, where we are going to be measuring the impact of our solution in terms of thermal comfort and discomfort, in terms of biodiversity gains, and in terms of water retention and plant autonomy. So really great. As I think when we talked six months ago around the PIC, we were still very much into the ideation phase, if you will, and now it's getting more and more physical and tangible.
Great, thank you both for the quick intro. And maybe this is where I'd love to kickstart with the first question, and we'll go for Pranit and then Ethan, if that's all right with you guys. Around for all those folks that are currently in the considering applying here, on the one hand, well, there is no money at the end, there is no structured pilots at the end, but could you actually go through the experience of going through PIC, and actually what did you get out of it, in the hope that you indeed got something out of it?
So let's start with the second part of the question first. What did we get out of it? One of the things which I thought was amazing about the process was the experience of being able to put your business plan in front of experienced real estate professionals. For a startup, it's never easy. It's very easy to live on your own plaudits. So it's very nice to hear from other people what they think about your business plan and whether they think it's going to make sense, whether it's going to progress or not. From an external perspective, who've never seen it, never heard of it, I think there's a brilliant chance at PIC to do that, because there's a lot of opportunity across the board to understand that. And I think that was one of the things we took away from, because one of the things we've done since PIC is we pivoted our business plan to include some of the suggestions made by them For example, when we started in PIC, we were doing subsidies only. We were using European subsidies, and we've pivoted a little bit to now doing it with financing as well. So it's things that we learned across the board, and I think that's great. I think in the process as a whole is really interesting, especially as you go from the region to Europe. In the region, you learn what everyone is doing and how people are doing things differently. I think that's amazing to understand. And then you just learn how to move your business in the right direction. I think those are the best things I learned from the whole process.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a good point, Pranit, and maybe, you know, it's fun that you're saying this. I think, you know, a big piece of all this is, you know, it's at the end of the day, the industry is relatively small, right? It's finite. And so basically the folks that you'll meet at ULI are basically the folks that most of you'll see over a long time in the industry. And I remember, I think, Pranit, after Sea Change, after the announcement, and you both actually joined the Sea Change program, what were the odds that later that day we were actually at the airport, leaving Copenhagen at the same time? And in the airport, we just met with, you know, the head of PGIM from Innovation, and we just could have a chat in the most random place at the airport around a coffee after the conference. And I think this is really, you know, obviously to your point, and is really about the relationship creation, and not just relationship in terms of I'm going to sell this and a transactional, you know, relationship, but really at a human level. And I think that's really the power of ULI, I would say, in general, is that, you know, people are here because they're generally curious to learn more. And obviously this is where it's all benefit for all the applicants and startup ecosystem in general. But maybe without saying more on this, I'd love to have your thoughts, Eitan, in terms of, you know, when you started, did you know about ULI? How aware were you about ULI, and, you know, how does this whole thing unfold?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. In our case, we had heard about ULI back when we were in school, and we were somewhat curious about the whole organization. But I think what you were explaining for the past 30 minutes might have sounded a bit nebulous to us a year ago, and now it's much clearer. So I think, all in all, it's been really wonderful to dive into this big organization and find out that in fact it's quite simple and straightforward. In terms of the process, which you were asking about earlier, and I've been saying this to you a few times, I think already, Simon, but I'm really happy as compared to other application procedures. The ULI PIC application is, it may sound like there's a lot of steps, but in fact, it's actually always very straightforward and very quick. The turnover and the time has been needed to get answers and to get results from whenever we were submitting something last year. And I think that's one of the most encouraging aspects of it, right? That's you don't have to wait 3 months or 6 months to find out what's going to happen to your project. You know quite immediately how things are turning out. In terms of what we got out of it, which was your final question, we have been, I think with worst case, we're coming perhaps more from the angle and the perspective of design. Of course, super interested in the real estate industry and already talking with clients from the private and public sector. But I think it really helped us to be on the map of the whole industry and the whole real estate ecosystem, at least here in Paris where we operate, but also more broadly in Europe and several other cities and countries. And I think that's been really, really useful and important for us. I think that's mostly it. I'm happy to discuss more afterwards.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Eitan. And I think, to your point, sometimes for an entrepreneur and with a company, it's difficult to get market recognition. It's just another startup. But the beauty with ULI is because it's such a brand in the industry that if you can relate somehow to that brand, there is some kind of market recognition, and hopefully, as you mentioned now with the Paris pilot, hopefully this did help at some point in just making sure, re-ensuring all the stakeholders that it is something that we trust in, and I think that's especially from the corporate side, that's something we, especially now after the big PropTech hype, and now everyone's kind of understanding that, you know, we need to be mindful with who we partner. It's reinsurance is at the center of all the distrust, you know, partnering with a startup or any company. And maybe here, I'd love to just, you know, reemphasize the fact that with PIC, we don't just focus on, you know, the typical maybe SaaS type of solution, right? It's really any solution, whether it's high tech or low tech, that has an impact on the built environment. And I think, you know, to your point, you know, and here we have amazing differences. You know, on the one hand, it's around refinancing and financing of a redevelopment project. On the other, it's really focused on the design side and a new way of rethinking our roofs. I think that's the real beauty, which in general, I think, yeah, sometimes it's really focused on one part. Yeah, so I think that's quite interesting. Maybe a quick other question for both of you is around, you know, around what would be, and hopefully you did get it, but at a personal level. So now we're talking mostly about business, and, you know, and hopefully it did have an impact on that. At a personal level, how did PIC, maybe a quick, I don't know if you have any particular story too, but how did PIC help you, you know, at a personal level? Did it actually help at all? Not connecting with folks within the ULI community that you would never elsewhere, or, you know, engaging now with the ULI where you weren't really as an individual? I'm curious to hear, and maybe happy to start with Ethan, and then we head over to Pranit.
Yeah, I think as you're saying, and as most of us are experiencing, I think with PIC and with ULI, it's just been for me a great encounter with a lot of folks in the real estate industry, on kind of every sub branch of the industry in Paris and more broadly in Europe. And yeah, I cannot think of how many people and groups and events have been happening ever since we joined ULI. And I wish I could attend and join all of them, because there's been a lot going on. But it's been really great. I think you were talking earlier, Simon, about curiosity of the people who are at ULI, and I think deep down that's what we've been enjoying the most in this community. That's even if people are let's say brokers or coming more from the investment side, or something that's in first impression doesn't have any relationship to what we're doing. In the end, there's always this mutual interest for what we're doing and what they're doing that helps us connect. So we're really happy about all these encounters.
Thank you, Ethan. Pranit, any thoughts?
For mine, it was really nice during the PIC process to understand what everyone else is doing and how they were doing it and how they were thinking about running their businesses. It's nice to see other people presenting and understanding from their perspective, and to just learn. It was just nice to learn like how our industry is moving forward. From a personal perspective, for example, the simplest one, Ethan's on here. Ethan and I have been talking about different ways that we could collaborate, or we could think of how our two companies could do something together. But whether it works or doesn't work is beside the point. The question is, this would have never happened. I would have never met Ethan if we didn't participate in ULI PIC. So it's piece by piece of the puzzle. I think that was one of the great things, that the people we met and the things you learned along the way, and how everyone was thinking about their businesses. I think those were the great things that we learned during the process. Thank
you very much, Pranit, and I fully agree. I mean, it's ultimately down to relationships, serendipity to a next level, and then I guess around education, because ultimately, to your point, Ethan and Pranit, ULI is basically all the stakeholders of the industry, but too often in our industry, all our stakeholders are extremely siloed and comfortable where they are. And thinking beyond is I mean, rightfully, they're very busy, is not the most natural thing to do. And this is also what we're trying to do, is how can you guys educate our industry versus also those guys educating you, and ultimately, as you mentioned, both of you educating everyone. So it's a win-win-win situation. Maybe a last final question for the folks, again, for everyone who's watching us online, and for the folks who are joining us now. What would be your recommendation in terms of, you know, how to become a PIC Europe winner, or or you know, how do you get to the final stage? I don't know if you have any final recommendation, and maybe we'll kick it off with Ethan and then close it with Pranit on that. I don't know, Ethan, if you want to kick it off, if you have any special sauce on that.
I don't know if I have any special with this, but just to move back to our experience last year, we did not expect that we would fit in ULI PIC at all. At the beginning, we were seeing a lot of companies that were perhaps more towards software than hardware than we were. And so, yeah, we thought that the chances were very slim, but I think ultimately it's what got the jury interested. The fact that we're not exactly what they had expected and what was fitting in. So what I mean, the takeaway is that if you feel like you're not in the right place, you're actually probably in the right place, in the sense that if you are somewhat feeling like your project or company or material or solution or whatever it is contributing to the real estate industry, I think there will definitely be some interest from the ULI folks. And yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention around this whole process again is really, I'm so amazed by how genuinely involved the ULI community and especially the PIC champions and organizers have been. And I really encourage you to reach out to them if you have any questions about your pitch, about your business plan, about yeah, pretty much anything that you might want to get feedback on. I think they're a great resource to help you do that. So don't be shy, and we've done it last year with the ULI Friends PIC champion, and it was super useful.
Merci, Ethan. Pranit, final thoughts?
I think the key is keep it simple. Just keep it simple. The idea would be the way we thought about it was make it a realistic case. Don't say we're going to build a colony on Mars. Don't start with that. Let's start with something that you can apply to the day-to-day, because real estate as a whole, as you know, is very slow to adapt. We like what we do it the same way, we keep doing it the same way, and it hasn't changed really over the last few years, and it's changing, but very, very slow. We're always known to be the last adopters of all technology. So I think you have to take it step by step. Build a very, very simple case. I would say for a 5-year-old, and make sure the 5-year-old can read it. If they don't get bored by it, you've got something going. And then the numbers matter. Numbers matter. People are going to look at numbers, because if you say, I'm going to spend 100 million to make 1 million, people will say that doesn't really work, and no one's going to be okay with that. So the numbers matter. Keep it simple. Look for your business case and try to explain it like you'd explain it to a 5-year-old. Just make it very simple. And I think those are the keys. Those are the keys to the whole project. Is if you make it complicated, if you add too many things, they'll ask you a lot of questions, which will become harder and harder as it goes along. And the question is it too hard for you to implement it, right? Is it too hard for you to implement it? Because sometimes, as I said, colony on Mars, we can do it, but in our generation, or even the young leaders generation, is that going to happen? We don't know yet. But that's going way, way above and beyond. So keep it simple. As long as you keep it simple, it'll be fun.
Thank you very much, Pranit. No, yeah, thank you, and hopefully we'll make it happen during our lifetime. But look, great. I mean, thank you both. I mean, I know both of you are in the middle of big things. You know, Pranit, you mentioned evolving the service of EFIC. Ethan, in the middle of your first tangible pilots in Paris. So I think hopefully all those will move forward, and hopefully, you know, again, the ULI name will help you move forward with that in your respective country and as you scale beyond. And in the meantime, again, I don't think we'll dive into the Q&A, but what I'll definitely say is that for the folks seeing us online and the folks here today, some big dates to keep in mind. So mid-May, this is where we're going to close officially the PIC applications. So in the meantime, if you have any question, as mentioned by the rest of us here, reach out. Whether if it's not myself, Susse or Thibaut, well, have a chat with Ethan or Pranit to get their thoughts. Or even better, your PIC champions. And again, all the PIC champions, the 14, 15 of them, their names is actually on the website, the PIC website, under the champion list. And on that same page, you'll see all the jury locally that you'll have, and the European one as soon as it's announced. And it's the European conference. which is actually coming quite fast. I think the 13th of June, which is just an amazing opportunity to connect with the community. And for the ones who didn't yet, I highly recommend. But voilà, look, on that note, I don't know if Susa, you have any final thoughts or...
Thank you, Simone. I think it's super interesting hearing from you guys. I wasn't part of the PIC last year, but I'm very excited about being a part of this year. It is truly inspirational. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Look, Susa, Pranit, Ethan, thank you again for your time. Thank you for everyone watching this. And then hopefully we'll see you, at Sea Change for the big European final. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.